Welcome to this tutorial on SPSS, which is a very simple introduction to the software to help get you started. When you open the software, you'll see that there are a number of different function buttons at the top, and these will become very important as you start to do statistical analyses. The second area of importance is the toolbar. These are functions that tend to be used quite often and therefore are put in a very prominent position. There are two windows, Data View and Variable View, that you flick between when you want to make a data set. So let's try and enter a very simple variable. So we go to Variable View first of all, and we're going to look at gender. And we give it a title, gender. Now, we need to tell SPSS how many components of this particular variable we have. So we know in gender we've got males and females. So we go to the values section, value number 1, males, add, value number 2, females. And depending on the kind of variable that you have, you may have many different numbers in this. So for example, different religions, socioeconomic status, etc. would have many more numbers here. And then we click OK. Then the next component that's important is to consider what kind of measure you have. So for example, if this was a questionnaire where we'd asked people to rate themselves on a number of different psychological variables, that would be scale. But because this is gender and everyone is equal, it's a nominal variable. Nothing is more important than anything else, so it becomes nominal. Now, when we go into Data View, we should see our first variable has been formed. And when we click on it, we can tell it if it's a male or a female that we're entering data about. So we can simply go down the list and type in males or females, or we can type the number 1 and we can copy and paste it down the list if we wish. So 2 is females, and 1 is male. We can go on then and we can create more variables of interest beside each other. So this time perhaps we're looking at age. And we might want to create categories for age. So value 1 might be 10 to 15. And category 2 might be 16 to 21. We go back into variable view and you can see again, we can then choose what category that individual is that we're interested in. So each one of these lines represents all of the information that we would have about a participant. Now, this is one of your data sets that you can explore. And let's run some very simple analyses on this data set. So the first thing we're going to look at is the average arousal level, and how it differs now is the differences between males and females and their average arousal level. And we can do that by going Analyze, Compare Means. And then we've got our dependent variable, which is the measure of arousal. And then we can look at the differences by gender. We can also look at differences across film as well. And if we click OK, you can see that we've got two tables here. One is the average arousal divided by males and females, and one is the average arousal divided by the movie. And we can see that Memento creates a higher level of arousal because it is a thriller than Bridget Jones' Diary. And we can also see that males have a higher level of arousal generally than females whilst watching movies. What we don't know, however, is if these differences are statistically significant. In order to do that, we need to run a different kind of analysis. But the first thing we need to understand is the extent to which our data meets the assumptions of normality. There are a number of ways to do that, but because this is an introduction, we're just going to look at a very simple histogram to determine the extent to which arousal is normally distributed. So we can see that this is how we would like our data to be, and this is our actual data. And it's not too bad. This data is more or less normally distributed. Where you would have concerns is if there was a large slope to the right or a large slope to the left. So the t-test is reasonably robust under these conditions, so that's the test that we're going to run. Analyze, compare means, and it's an independent samples t-test. And it's independent because males and females are independent of one another. So we put arousal across and we look at the gender differences, and it asks us again for our grouping variables. So we know that we've got males and females. And then we click OK. And this is the output that you will see. And these are the different areas that you need to be exploring. Now, this p-value, or the significance level, is 0.266, which we would round up to 0.27. Now, with what you know about statistical significance levels, do you think that this is a statistically significant effect? This time, let's have a look at the statistical significance of the difference between a thriller and a chick flick and levels of arousal. Analyze, compare means, independent samples t-test, because the two movies are independent of one another. This time we put arousal across as the test variable and film into the grouping variable. We know we've got two movies, and then we click OK. And this is the output table that you will see. Again, this is the information that you're particularly interested in. And we have a significance level of 0.000, which is very small indeed. Of what you know about statistical significance, what can you say now about these two different data sets? What we can say is that there is no statistical difference between males and females in levels of arousal. But there is a statistical significance between different movies and the levels of arousal. Now let's try and do a very simple graph to explain our data. And I'm choosing a line graph here because I feel it will best express the relationships between the variables. And you can see that SPSS is offering some options here. And we want a multiple line graph because we've actually got a number of different variables here. We've got gender and we've got different types of movies. And the summaries for groups of cases, because we have groups of cases, males and females, Bridget Jones's Diary and Memento. And then we click Define. The first thing that we've got to think about is what our main variable is. And we know that that's arousal. So we want a statistic drawn from arousal. So it will be average or mean. So we put that across here. Then our category axis and our lines. So which do we want to be our lines and which do we want to be the axis? So I think what we could do is put film across to show the category axis and gender to be the lines. You can also create titles. So we can do arousal by gender and film type. Continue. Now, when we click OK, what we should see is a nice line graph that shows the differences between the two movies by the different genders, by their mean arousal. And we can see that Bridget Jones's Diary for females is quite low in arousal, but there is quite a jump when they watch Memento. And there is a similar trend for males, and they're slightly higher on the arousal scale.